Meet Johnny Anton. Over the last decade, he's become one of the most successful salesmen in the entire country. He's helped scale multiple businesses to over 9 figures in revenue. However, it didn't start out that way. His family were immigrants from Iraq, and he grew up in one of the most poor parts of Detroit and was homeless for 2 years. But through all the trials and tribulations he dealt with, he learned the art of sales and became a multimillionaire. He brought me into his home to reveal some of his secrets on how he was able to become a 9-figure entrepreneur and one of the most renowned closers in the sales game.
Above all else, the economy could crash, the crypto markets could go down, there could be fraud, but tomorrow, if you can fucking sharpen that axe and sharpen that sword and just slay sales for any business that has high demand, you can be recession proof. You can be immune to anything that's going on with your mindset, your psychology, whatever's going on in the market.
In this interview, Johnny revealed to me the most valuable piece of advice he was given from his billionaire mentor.
You can't attract good leaders unless you have a very good product. 2 things that I learned is that it comes down to fundraising and recruiting.
He also walked me through the biggest thing he implemented to take multiple businesses from 8 to 9 figures. I'm James Dumoulin, and this is Questions with a Millionaire. If you were to go back in time and have a conversation with your younger self when you were starting from zero, what's the best piece of advice that you would tell your younger self?
Fail faster and don't make it mean fucking shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think too many people think that they're like attached to some sort of result. They have to have it be some way. They think that if it doesn't go a certain way, that they're going to like fail and this like the end of the world's going to happen, right? And so I think people create so much significance in the very, very small failures. When you look at Israel as a country per capita and how many businesses have flourished into the billion unicorn startup, they have way more billion-dollar unicorn startups than any other country combined. Why is that? One thing they teach their kids is just failing forward intelligently, learning from their mistakes faster, and compounding time and removing the significance of everything. So if I could go back to my young self and give advice, dude, fail fucking faster and it doesn't mean shit.
What would you say is the biggest habit that led to you to be able to become a millionaire? What would you say? Honestly, I think that you have multiple. So like, what would you say are the top 3 habits that really led to your success and allowed you to become a millionaire?
I think the most important thing is reconditioning the mind by opening up the subconscious doors to the conscious mind through meditation. So I've been meditating consistently for over 6 years, and I first learned about meditation at a wrestling camp where we meditated every day about winning the state championship. I feel like everything about manifestation that they don't talk about is that every idea starts in what? Imagination. So you have to imagine Walt Disney knew Disney World in his mind before he actually created it. And in fact, 150 bankers said no to his loan to be able to fund in the 50s Disney World, which was $5 million and ended up costing $15 million. And picture and imagine going to 100 banks and telling people that you want to create a fictitious amusement park where characters from cartoons are hanging out with adults and children and people are riding rides back in the 50s, right? So everything starts in a thought through imagination. You have to be able to imagine what you don't actually know to be true in the material realm. You have to imagine something that you don't have in your possession. It's like Bob Proctor says, if you can hold it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So the first thing is meditating every single day and drawing in abundance and possibility and removing limitations from your past in your daily meditations. That's the first step. Second step is taking actions consistent and documenting what's working, what's not working. So I do an end of day report for all people in my sales team. And they have to look at who they talked to, what the result of the call was, and what worked and what didn't work, not just from what they said, but who they were being behind what they said, because context is way more important than content. That's why when I give 2 salespeople the same script, one of them just outperforms the other, and they're saying virtually the same thing. Why? Well, a lot of who you are behind your words and your actions determines your actual result. It's not really the action itself. So why feedback loops are so critical, why end of day reports are so critical, why having beginning, middle, end of day activities and then looking at what worked and what didn't work is the single greatest skill that you can master, because you don't let time just get away from you. Too many people just let time elapse and they don't make the improvements because they don't know what they don't know, because they're not even getting out of the game to understand the game. The greatest basketball players of all time, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant, what do they have all in common?
Mindset.
That's what most people say. They actually watched more tape than any other player, and they actually looked at whether they win, lose, or draw. They watch every single game the moment it ends after they've played it. And most people don't have that obsessive mindset to watch 3 hours of basketball and see what you can improve in the day-to-day interactions, especially if you won the game. So I think too many people are focused on winning the game, and they're not looking at in the game, outside of the game, and working on their actual skills and what's working and not working. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the second skill that you got to develop. The third skill is you got to cut checks faster as possible and as big as possible, and you have to pay people who have the results you're looking for. So go and find people and just cut the checks and cut them faster and cut them bigger. That's the single most important thing is pattern recognition. The moment you can be around the environment of people who have the results you're looking for, do not reinvent the wheel. Success leaves clues. If you just do what other people did, it's the single most important thing in life, is that how I got to the state championship after wrestling only 2 years, how I got to top of my class in high school and college, was all pattern recognition. I studied what I actually had to do in the moment-to-moment phenomenon. Everything comes down to stimulus and response. If you have a stimulus that you put out, you say something, the prospect says something. Stimulus, response. If you take an action, there's an input, there's an output. It's all just a pattern recognition system. And I think too many people try to reinvent the wheel because they grew up not being loved. They grew up, or at least they perceived it that way. They grew up never feeling like they were good enough. And that's why if you don't meditate every day, none of the information from podcasts and books will help you, because your subconscious mind will be trapped in a limitation from the past that you're not good enough, that you are less, that you'll never be successful. And so unconsciously, you'll just sabotage. You won't even know that you're sabotaging because you're still living inside of the old identity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is where people really, really mess up. And it's, so to sum it up, what did I say? I said meditation.
Taking action consistently.
And documenting what's working, what's not working, those feedback loops. And the last thing is hire people who already have the results you're looking for and just model their pattern recognition.
Wow. Yeah. So if you were to go back to when you started that first business, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself? What is your best advice to anybody going out on their own, starting a business in 2023?
Your ego is not your amigo. I thought because I helped a company go from high 8 figures to almost multiple 9 figures, I thought it was the absolute shit, dude. I thought it was like the fucking coolest thing, like the other side of the pillow. I was like, bro, I'm gonna dominate this. It's gonna be easy. And I remember my boss very specifically, his name is Paul, he sat down with me. He's like, you sure you want to give up $500,000 in 100% commission sales income where you don't have to do any marketing, take any risk on delivery, and don't have to hire people or have operations or finance? Are you sure you really want to do that? And I said, it can't be that hard. I mean, I helped you scale and double your revenue inside of 2 years, and I was single-handedly the leader of this entire team, building the training, the action plans, the sales processes, the advanced scripting, the storytelling, all of that stuff. I was a 24-year-old kid teaching people who had 20 years of experience with the top closers for Tony Robbins, and I was literally running circles around them.
Wow.
And I was like, in my mind, I was so much fucking ego and arrogance. I was such a fucking asshole in my 20s. I thought I was the shit. And if I have any advice for any of you guys, don't think you're the shit. Pay someone who has the results you're looking for and actually just model them.
Wow.
Too much of my time was spent trying to figure out on my own because I had so much ego and arrogance, trying to prove my dad wrong because I didn't have the love and the appreciation and the attention from him that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I let my daddy issues actually suppressed over time invent itself in ways of trying to have too much control of the process, having too much arrogance, not giving up the old identity for the new identity.
Yeah.
That's the advice I have for you, is give up your old identity. Like, what do you have to give up to actually just give up that control, give up what you think you know, and really understand that you don't know what you don't know. You have blind spots and you don't actually understand how to get it, because if you did, you'd have it, right? And so that being said, get out of your comfort zone, hire someone, and learn from someone who already has the results you're looking for.
What is the number one thing that takes a business from 7 to 8 figures and then 8 to 9 figures?
A mentor that I've really researched and understood his materials, Ryan Breslow. The guy is under 30 years old and he owns 2, now almost 3 multi-billion-dollar unicorn startups. How the hell did a sub 30-year-old guy build multiple billion-dollar companies? And two things that I learned is that it comes down to fundraising and recruiting. I think too many people don't realize that how much cash you actually need to scale, and you can only generate that cash and scale and hire when you have good leadership. And you can only have good leadership when you have really good visionary skills. And you can only have really good visionary skills if you have a really good product. So it starts with a really, really good product, then having the amazing vision to fundraise so that you can hire the top tier talent. It's actually top tier talent. It's nothing else. People will tell you, oh, it's got to have one product on one platform that you scale with one ad, and then you scale from there by adding more products. That might be true in an e-commerce business, but if we're talking about raw financial services, if we're talking about banking and private equity, it all comes down to top tier talent. In tech, it's all top tier talent. That's why the unicorn startups go and steal the talent from other companies. It's really talent, but you cannot have talent without really good compensation packages. Right. And you can't have good compensation packages if you don't have a badass product that sells itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a key.
Yeah. If your bank account hit zero tomorrow, what would be the first step that you would take to build your empire back and become financially free again? What's the first thing that you would do if you had to start from zero?
And I don't have all the psychology and conditioning and all the mindset?
You have your skill sets and your connections.
Okay. I would just go to whoever's selling the most expensive shit and go sell their shit until I fill my bank account up to pay my rent.
Yeah.
So once you have food and shelter, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food and shelter, you're good. Once you have food and shelter, then we want to psychologically belong. We want to then actualize our potential, right? So you don't really, like, I lived in my car before for an entire year. Like, you don't really need material things and nice places like this to really, really do well. You just need skills and you need connections. And how you actually monetize those connections is you have to have skills that then adds value to people so that they want to be around you because you provide them with some good energy. You provide them with a skill set that then you can give away for free so that they can connect you to people who can then fill your bank account up by then solving those problems on a paid model. So if I could do it all over again, I would just add value to people for free until they gave me testimonials and case studies and get an anchor client. I would then take that anchor client and I would go to all their competitors and everybody in their niche and everybody that's first degree separation to that, and I would use that case study to sell the most expensive package with the most value and the least risk for the client. And then from there, I would then build a sales team around that to scale that up and then run ads and increase lead sources, etc. Does that make sense?
Perfect. My next question for you. So people in sales in today's world, maybe they're really good at getting leads in or people in the door, but they suck at closing. So for you personally, let's say that you're in negotiations, right? You have a potential client or a customer, they're on the fence, maybe they're leaning towards a no. What's your strategy to turn a no into a yes? How are you able to close successfully?
Sales really comes down to understanding psychology. And until you master your own psychology, you cannot overcome someone else's psychology and their limitations. Wow. Right? And that's where a lot of people mess up in sales is they consume content about sales. They buy sales courses, and all that does is create incremental results. You know how to overcome this objection. Even the nature of your question is, how do I overcome the objection? How do I turn a no into a yes? Well, what if I told you that in your presentation, you blocked every single possible objection because instead of just getting on the phone for the very first time with that avatar, that you've broken down that avatar over and over from a demographic and a psychographic, right? The behaviors that they take is the psychographic. So the interests, the desires, that who they are as a person and their actual psychology and how they make decisions is the psychographics. The demographics are who they are, how old are they, where do they come from, what is their background, where do they grow up, what were their parents like, right? Those two things are inside of every single person. So until you understand who you're talking to and what they care about, you can't solve problems on the phone. Solving problems on the phone is what sales is. Sales is just a transfer of certainty that you can take someone from their current situation to their desired situation, right? And their desired situation is really them telling you what it is that they want. So much of sales and people selling is trying to force your agenda on what you think people want instead of just really asking them where they're starting from, where they're looking to go, and how is your product and service the gap between where they are today to where they want to be? Does that make sense?
Yes. Wow, that was great. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for tons of amazing content coming soon. Johnny, where can everybody find you?
Johnny the Closer on Instagram, and if you don't follow my boys, you're all fucking bum.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My man, Johnny. Hey, Johnny the Closer, tap in on Instagram. Like, subscribe. We got amazing content coming soon. See you in the next one.